Okay, so tonight's Purim shir, we'll see how much we can get through. I want to talk about the end of the Purim story, the enigmatic ending of the Purim story. We're all very familiar with the Purim story, and I think what's going to come this evening is a bit of a surprise, certainly in terms of Vashti and Achashverosh. Of course, the ending of the Purim story is a happy one. We're celebrating in a few days' time. It's a Yontef, it's one of the high points of the Jewish year. We'll celebrate, perhaps this year is slightly muted, but it's a day of celebration, La Yehudim, Ha'Yisrael, etc. However, for Esther herself, the end is actually very bittersweet. How so? Well, let's take a look. We'll just read the Psukim in the Megillah. Let's look at Perek Dalet, Pasuk Yud Gimel. If you're listening online, please email me at j.golker@gmail.com and I'll send you the handout. Vayomer Mordechai, Lahoshiv al Esther. Al tadomi b'nafshech lehimolet beis hamelech mikol haYehudim, ki im hacharish tacharishi. It's one of the most poignant psukim in the whole Megillah. If you remain silent and you don't step up, beis hazos revach v'hatzol yamud laYehudim imokmacha. HaKadosh Baruch Hu will save the Jewish people, but the saving will come from somewhere else. V'atu beis avich tavedu, you'll be lost to oblivion. Umi yedeim leis kazois yigat lemalchus. This is your big moment, and don't lose it. And Esther replies, I'm going for it. I'm going to step up. Go gather all of Klal Yisrael and fast for me. Don't eat and drink for 3 days, 3 nights. I will also fast, so too will my maidservants. Etc. Famous words. And just like I will be lost, I will be lost. We'll see what that means in a moment. And Mordechai went ahead, gathered Klal Yisrael, they fasted for her, she fasted, etc., etc. What does she mean by the words v'chasher avadati avadati? Says the Gemara in Megillah Tes Vav Amud Aleph, the next box. Ada sheloi kados, Omer Rabbi Abba, sheloi kados hoya. I.e., shebechol yom v'yom ad achshav ba'onis. Till now, she was in a situation of onus. She was forced to live with Achashverosh. But now, when she initiated that meeting, it was no longer in the category of onus, of forced, it was berotzen. And halachically, that's a different ballgame. Because she is going to commit adultery, berotzen, which means, kasher avadati, kashem she'avadati mibeis abo, kach oved mimeka. Which means, according to the opinion which says that Esther was married to Mordechai, she could no longer stay married to Mordechai because she is willingly engaged in this relationship and therefore her marriage was over. So what is the postscript of the Purim story for Esther herself? It's tragic because she remains married to Achashverosh. She is no longer able to be married to Mordechai. She has a child with Achashverosh. The child is, of course, Jewish. The mother is Esther HaMalka. This child, Darius in English, is halachically 100% Jewish, but he grows up to all extent and purpose as a Persian king. And you can just picture Esther HaMalka living with Achashverosh, who's described in Chazal as worse than Haman, and living in the palace, away from Klal Yisrael, and picture her putting her child to bed at night, whispering in her, her malach and saying Shema with a little baby, and saying, you're Jewish, blai bayid. So it's a very tragic end. And yes, Daryavesh, he marries Persian women. Yes, he gave permission to build the Beis Hamikdash, but it wasn't the nachas, I suppose, that Esther was hoping for. So for Esther, the end of the Megillah is actually tragically sad. Now, what about Achashverosh and Vashti? So I came across something for the first time this year. There's a sefer called Persumei Nisa, and someone showed me this sefer, and he quotes something quite astonishing, which I just was not familiar with. Let's a bit of background first. There is a Tosfos Rishonim, one of the Balei Tosfos in the Gemara in Yuma Daf Tes. The Gemara there refers to someone, a Tana, called Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta. Now, Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta is a very unusual name. It literally means Rabbi Yochanan, the son of an ox. Turta. So the Tosfos Rishonim says, what is the background to this unusual name? But Pesikta Rabati, Perek Yudalad, Mefarish Niskaya Lidei Para. the Tosfos Shalom refers you to a Pesik Rabati, a Medrash, which says that this Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta was converted to Yiddishkeit as a result of an incident with a parah, with a cow, and that's why it's called Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta. So what is this incident? So here's the Pesik Rabati. If you look at the next box, Omer Rabbi Seinu, Mai Sahoy B'Yisrael Echad, Shehoy Le Parah Achas Chereshes. There was a Jew, a Yisrael, who had an ox that would plow the field. Nismayed Yodai, times became difficult. Umachra loy legoy echad. He had to sell the animal, and he sold it to a certain non-Jewish person. Kiven shelokcha hagoy v'chashim hasheshes yom shalchol. The non-Jewish person, the new owner, worked the animal for 6 days. B'Shabbos hotzia shetech rishima. This non-Jewish person wanted to work on Shabbos as well. Why not? He took the animal out. V'rov seloi tachas ha'ol, and the animal just crouched down and refused to work. He hit the animal wouldn't budge, he's not working. He went back to the seller, this Jewish fellow, go take your animal back. I'm hitting it, I'm shouting at it, the animal's not budging. You've sold me a dud, I want my money back. Next paragraph. This Yisrael understood Bishvil Shal Shabbos. This animal was used to working 6 days a week and resting on Shabbos. Don't worry, I'll come to the field and I'll get it to stand and continue working. He went over to the cow and he whispered in the ear and said, Para, para, my dear animal, when you were in my ownership, when I owned you, for 6 days a week you worked hard, and on Shabbos you rested. But now my sins have caused to sell you, and now you're in the possession of a non-Jewish person. You got to now, you're allowed to work on Shabbos. So get up and start working. Immediately the animal got up and started plowing. He says, take this animal back. What did you say to this animal? I was hitting it, shouting at it, and nothing happened. He said, look, there was no magic over here. And this is what I said to it. I just whispered in the ear what I just said, i.e., that now you're in the possession of this non-Jewish person. You should be working 7 days a week, not 6 days a week. Last paragraph. Miyad nisyare hagoy. This non-Jewish owner suddenly got very worried. Omar, he said the following: if this animal, this ox, has no das, has no intelligence, and cannot talk, Hekira espoira, and yet recognizes its creator, Anishi Yitzrani Yitzri Bidmusai, I am created in the image of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, V'nosen midas, and I've got intellect, Eini Hoilechu Makir Esboiri, shouldn't I recognize my creator as well? Miyad Bov Niskaya. So this non-Jewish animal owner converted. V'lomad, and he learned Torah. V'zocha l'Torah v'hoyukorim shmo Yochanan ben Turta. He was Yochanan ben Turta. Interesting medrash. So Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta, that is referred to, he converted, and he was known as Rabbi Yochanan ben Turta based on this incident. Now, what's this got to do with Purim? So take a look at this. The medrash, and this medrash is brought by the Pesumei Nisa, but it's a medrash brought in many places. It's the Yalkut and the Ein Yaakov brings it, and other sources. Vashti, Hamarshas, the wicked Vashti, Nerega be'etzim yom HaShabbos. She was killed. This whole story, the beginning of the Purim story, she was killed on Shabbos. She refused to come to the Sud of the Melech, and he killed her. When did that take place? On Shabbos. Why? Because it's tit for tat. That's how it goes. HaKadosh Baruch Hu pays you back in kind. How so? Mishum shehoise Vashti harsha mevia b'nos Yisrael mafshiton. She says the Medrash would bring Jewish ladies and would undress them, v'oise b'hem melacha, and would force them to work b'yom HaShabbos. Lekach nigza aleha shetishachit b'Shabbos. Her comeuppance was that she was killed on Shabbos itself. Now, says the Pirsumei Nisa, quoting the Rama Mipanoi, B'Sefer Gilgulei Neshamas l'Rama Mipanoi, Kosov. Now, we've quoted the Rama Mipanoi before. He was a 16th century Mekubal, a Talmud of Moshe Kudavira. He comes up with some remarkable things. But this, in Gilgulei Neshamas of the Rama Mipanoi, he says the following: Vashti nisgalgala bahi para. She, after she was killed, she was reincarnated into this ox that we spoke about in this medrash. Shemocha eisa chassid, that this chassid, this pious person sold, v'lo ha'saroitz lachrosh b'Shabbos, and she didn't want to work on Shabbos. He Vashti, that is actually Vashti, ki hi ha'saroitz sheyasu b'nei Yisrael melacha b'Shabbos, because she forced the Jewish ladies to do work on Shabbos. So her tikkun, as it were, was to actually now go and work on Shabbos. So the chassid had to sell this animal to a non-Jewish person, and the animal was forced. Vashti was forced to work on Shabbos. V'oisa goy hamiskaya, and who was the guy who was miskaya? Al zehu Achashverosh. He was none other than Achashverosh. V'oz hi tikkun, and that was the tikkun that he needed. Ad kan hashenei. And v'huva dvarav b'seida aderes of Yalkut me'am loyes. And this is brought in the Seder Adoros and Yalkut me'am loyes. So, if anyone asks you what was the end of the Purim story, you could answer simplistically, well, it was a happy ending. Haman was hung with his 10 sons, and then Achashverosh let off the Jewish. It was a happy ending. But actually for Esther, it's a somewhat more enigmatic and tragic ending, and certainly for Achashverosh and Vashti, it's a very strange ending. But one thing that emerges, and there isn't time to do the rest of it, but I'll just finish with this one concept. It's something which we said before, but I think it fits in very well. It's a vart of Enigmatic Biderman. I heard it from him. I think it's his idea. I'm not sure who else says this, but I think it summarizes the whole thing. There is a Mishnah. The first Mishnah in Megillah says, Megillah nikris be'echadasar, be'shneimosar, be'shleishasar, be'arba'asar, be'chamishasar, le'pachas v'le'yeseh. The Megillah can be read on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, and 15th of Adar. Now, the Gemara describes how it can be read in certain situations. We, of course, read it on the 14th and in Yerushalayim on the 15th, but it can be read on the 11th, 12th, 13th, 14th, or 15th. It says Rabbi Melech Biderman, if you add up those 5 dates, 11 plus 12 plus 13 plus 14 plus 15, you get, I'll save you, 65. Right? 65. 65, there are lots of names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. The two most common names are the Shem Adnus, Aleph Daled and Nun Yud, and the Shem Havoya, Yud Kei Vav Kei. The Shem Adnus, Aleph Daled and Nun Yud is Gematria 65. The Adnus represents HaKadosh Baruch Hu relating with us, to us, through nature, not through overt miracles. That's the Shem Adnus. Megillah Nikras, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, i.e. the Megillah is all about HaKadosh Baruch Hu relating to us through nature, not through overt miracles. That's the Purim story. There's no splitting of the Yam Suf. There's no shemen lasting for 8 days instead of 1. It's all natural phenomenon. It's just a story unfolding. And therefore, the Megillah can be read on 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, which is through natural means. But not more, not less, i.e. not on day 10 of Adar and not on day 16 of Adar. 10 and 16 is 26, which is the Shem Havoya. Yud and a K and a Vav and a K, those 4 letters add up to 26, i.e., and what is the Yud K Vav K? That represents direct involvement through miracles. i.e., Purim is all about 65 and not 26. It's all about HaKadosh Baruch Hu relating to us through natural phenomena and not through supernatural phenomena. Lo pachas v'lo yoseh, not 26, not through overt miracles, supernatural miracles. And I think that's relevant because that's really what's going on over here. We see the world as natural, but really there's a master plan. The natural phenomena of the Purim story, that there was a king who drinks for 180 days and then he gets drunk. If you drink for 180 days, you're going to get drunk. and then he decides to kill his wife, and we need to find a replacement, etc., etc. No overt miracles, but clearly there is a puppeteer on high who's orchestrating the whole events. That's really what Purim is all about. And you see that there's one huge master plan. How so? Well, we haven't got the whole story, because we're only seeing a little snapshot of the story. You take a step back and you see something much more. You see the end for Esther, you see Vashti, you see Achashverosh, there's Gilgulim, they come back an instant many centuries later in the form of a parah, and he sells it to a guy. There's much more going on. But that's all through natural phenomena, and that's really what Purim is all about. There's HaKadosh Baruch Hu running the world. That's really what emerges from all of this. So a very enigmatic ending to the Purim story, and not something we're perhaps always familiar with, but something which I think gives a lot of food for thought. Wish you all a Freilichen Purim.